I was standing beneath a string of paper lanterns, late afternoon sunlight slanting through the trees, when my best friend's fiancé asked a question that rattled me to my core. It should have been such a simple conversation: flowers, seating charts, dresses. Instead, his offhand comment about her +1 at the upcoming wedding dropped into my chest like a stone, because that +1 wasn't me, her own husband. In that split second, my stomach flipped, my mouth went dry, and 1,000 alarms went off in my head. The fiancé quickly clamped his lips together, realizing too late that he'd said something he shouldn't. I tried to school my face into calm, but shock and fear rippled through me. This was the first I'd heard of any +1, and the implications struck a wound that might never heal. Let me backtrack a little. I'm Aiden, married to Tessa for nearly 7 years. She's an architect by day, a painter by night, and for a long time, I considered her my greatest miracle. We met in college. She was the quiet student who doodled floor plans in the margins of her notebook, and I was the class clown with big dreams of film school. We shouldn't have clicked, but we did. We came from different worlds. Her parents are expats with a villa in Spain, mine are farmers from Kansas. Somehow, the puzzle pieces fit. But in the last few months, something had changed. She started spending more weekends away under the guise of working on site. She'd appear at odd hours, never quite explaining where she'd been. She grew cagey about her phone. I'm not proud to admit I'd brushed off those red flags, convinced that Tessa was just knee-deep in a major project. Instead of investigating, I told myself I'd simply trust her. That's the promise we made on our wedding day, right? But now, standing in the backyard of my best friend Caitlin's fiancé's house, every unspoken doubt rushed to the surface. We'd been meeting to finalize details for Caitlin's wedding. I was in charge of some logistical tasks. Tessa was supposed to be at a site meeting that day. Ironically, Caitlin's fiancé, Rob, was excited about the wedding party, and the conversation took a turn toward who'd be bringing whom. Then he casually said, "Tessa said she might bring that +1 to the rehearsal dinner. Should we reserve them a seat?" His question hung in the air like a live wire. My pulse hammered. My initial reaction was to blink, stammer, and hope I'd misheard him. But the look on his face told me he realized his slip. He stuttered, "Oh, I might have confused something. Sorry, man." Too late. The blow had landed. I forced a smile, said something about checking with Tessa, but my mind was already spinning. Tessa was the one who introduced Caitlin to me back in college, so the four of us had always been close. Why would she mention a +1 that wasn't me, to Caitlin's own fiancé, no less? I played it cool, or tried to. Inside, my world was tilting. I texted Tessa, asked if she'd meet me for dinner that night. Her reply came half an hour later: "Can't. Still at the site. Sorry. Love you." The words sounded robotic, or maybe that was my paranoia. While Rob apologized profusely for letting something slip, I reassured him that it was probably just a miscommunication. But I could see the worry in his eyes, the flicker of pity maybe, as if he knew more than he was telling me. By the time I left his place, my head was throbbing, questions swirling. Part of me wanted to confront Tessa immediately. But I also dreaded hearing the answers. Was it possible she'd planned to bring a friend, or a relative, to the wedding if I couldn't attend? But Rob never would have described a random friend as a +1 that needed special mention. Also, Tessa hadn't said a word to me about missing Caitlin's wedding. She'd known Caitlin for years, so obviously Tessa would want to attend. Why wouldn't I be her partner? We're both close to Caitlin. Something about the entire scenario screamed affair. The possibility made my stomach churn. Instead of going home, I drove aimlessly for a while, trying to quell the panic in my chest. I ended up at a local bar we used to frequent, the place Tessa and I had gone on our third date. I remember that date vividly. She wore a pea coat and fingerless gloves, sipped her whiskey neat, looking cooler than I ever felt. Now the memory just tasted bitter. I slid onto a bar stool, ordered a cheap beer, and tried to weigh my options. If Tessa was truly cheating, then everything I thought I knew about us was a lie. If it was a misunderstanding, how would I approach her without sounding paranoid? I nursed that beer for an hour, texting Tessa again, "We need to talk. Please let me know when you're free." She didn't respond. By the time I made it home, the house felt cold and empty. She wouldn't be back until late, if at all. In bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying Rob's words, "She might bring that +1." Sleep never came. The next morning, Tessa slipped into the house at dawn. I heard the door creak, sprang up to meet her. She looked drained, bags under her eyes, hair in a messy bun, wearing the same clothes as the day before. "Sorry," she murmured, setting down her keys. The site meeting ran forever, then I got stuck in traffic. Are you up already? Didn't sleep, I admitted, my voice tense. We need to talk. She frowned, concerned. Everything okay? I motioned for her to sit in the living room. She eyed me warily, but complied. My heart thudded as I sat opposite her. I went to meet Rob about Caitlin's wedding, I began. Tessa nodded, a flicker of guilt or nervousness crossing her face. He mentioned something about you bringing a +1. That, obviously confused me. Her mouth parted slightly, eyes widening. He said what? I swallowed. He said, well, it sounded like you told him you might not come with me, but with someone else. Care to explain? My tone was sharper than I intended, but the tension had worn down my patience. Tessa exhaled, dropping her gaze. That's a misunderstanding, she said at last. I was talking to Rob in passing, telling him about a co-worker who wanted to see a wedding in action, but it was never set in stone. He might have misinterpreted me. Her explanation felt off. Then why didn't you mention it to me? I pressed. And do you usually talk to your co-worker about being a +1 at a wedding? That's not normal unless. She stood abruptly, crossing her arms. Don't you trust me? I've had a million things on my plate, maybe I forgot to mention it. My co-workers from overseas, never experienced an American wedding. I thought I'd see if Caitlin was okay with them tagging along. That's it. Which co-worker? I asked, heart pounding. She hesitated. You don't know him. He's new, I barely know him either, but he's curious about American traditions. It's not a big deal, Aiden. Rob's obviously making a mountain out of a molehill. My gut twisted. She was being defensive, evasive. And you didn't think to mention this to me at all, even though this wedding is for my best friend, too. She sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. I've been stressed. I didn't think it was important because I hadn't even decided if I'd bring him. Honestly, if it bothers you so much, I won't. End of story. The tension in the room crackled. I searched her face for sincerity. She looked tired, yes, but also closed off, like a fortress. Okay, I said quietly. I want to believe you. But you must see how weird this seems. We're married. Why wouldn't you ask me first, or just come with me, to a wedding for our friends? She shook her head. Aiden, can we not do this right now? I'm exhausted. Let me shower and sleep. Then we'll talk again. I wanted to push, but the dark circles under her eyes told me I'd get nowhere. With a nod, I let her retreat. She vanished upstairs. I flopped onto the couch, rubbing my own bleary eyes, frustration mounting. Something in her explanation felt contrived. But without proof, I was left with suspicion. That day, she slept well into the afternoon. By the time she got up, I had to leave for a meeting. We barely exchanged a few words. She apologized for snapping, said we'd talk more that evening. However, that night, she claimed to have another late design session. We repeated the cycle of near misses all week, locked in a silent standoff. I'd wake up as she stumbled in, too tired to talk. I dreaded confronting her further, worried it'd explode into a full-blown fight. Meanwhile, Rob kept texting me apologies, saying he hoped things were okay. I gave him bland reassurances, though I suspected he knew more than he let on. Eventually, the wedding date loomed just a couple of weeks away. Caitlin's bachelorette party and Rob's bachelor party were set for the same weekend. Tessa was supposed to help Caitlin with some last-minute errands, and I was to handle logistics with Rob. The tension in my chest grew. If Tessa indeed had some side arrangement with another man, this wedding might be the moment everything was exposed. Then something else suspicious happened. I was searching for a file on Tessa's laptop one morning, hoping to find an old reference photo we used for a short film project. That's when an alert popped up, event added to your calendar. It was Tessa's shared calendar, which we usually synced. The event read, Lunch with E, Final Talk. My brow furrowed. I had no idea who that was. The lunch was scheduled for the next day, off in a neighboring town about an hour away. Why would Tessa schedule a lunch so far from home? Compelled by dread, I looked deeper. She'd apparently turned off sharing for most of her events, but this one must have slipped through. My heart hammered. If E was the co-worker or some romantic interest, she might be meeting them discreetly. This was a chance to get actual answers. My moral compass balked at the idea of following her in secret, but I was desperate. The next day, I cleared my schedule. Tessa left around 11, claiming to be meeting a client. Sure enough, her car headed to the highway. I followed at a distance, anxiety roaring in my ears. After an hour, she pulled off into a quiet town, parked in front of a small cafe. She got out, glancing around, then stepped inside. I waited, heart in my throat, until a second car arrived. A tall man with a neat beard and salt and pepper hair emerged. He wore casual attire, sunglasses perched on his head. He walked into the cafe, never once looking my way. Something about his confident stride made my stomach flip. I gave them 10 minutes, then stealthily entered the cafe. Keeping to the far side, I spotted them in a corner booth. Tessa looked anxious, fiddling with her napkin. The man, presumably, spoke in hushed tones. I inched closer, straining to catch fragments of their conversation. My heart hammered with guilt, but I had to know. Over the hum of customers, I made out phrases like, "Are you sure? He deserves to know, I can't ruin the wedding." Tessa's voice shook as she responded, "I'll handle it. Just let me finalize everything first." The man's tone was calm but firm. "Time's running out. I can't keep waiting. If you're not going to do it, I will." My mind whirled. Do what? Reveal their relationship? This had to be the co-worker or the plus one. My chest clenched painfully. Tessa's eyes welled with tears. "Please, just, trust me," she pleaded. "After Caitlin's wedding, I'll figure it out. I don't want to overshadow her day with my drama." The man sighed, nodded, and reached across to gently squeeze her hand. She let him. My stomach twisted. Without thinking, I snapped a photo on my phone, capturing them holding hands. My own heart felt like it might explode from anger, betrayal, or heartbreak. Then I hurried out before they could notice me. Once outside, I leaned against my car, breathing hard. This was no random co-worker. The conversation made it clear they had some big secret. Possibly an affair. Possibly he was her plus one. Possibly my entire life was about to implode. I drove home in a blur, cursing under my breath. Tessa returned a few hours later, casual as ever. She didn't mention the lunch. I confronted her, brandishing the phone photo. Her face went white. "Were you following me?" she demanded, voice cracking with anger and guilt. I shot back, "I had to. You're obviously hiding something. Who is he? Why did you talk about overshadowing Caitlin's wedding? Are you planning to bring him as your plus one?" Tessa's composure cracked. She sank onto a chair, burying her face in her hands. "This isn't what you think," she said, voice muffled. She paused, swallowing. "He's my father." My mind screeched to a halt. Father? She told me her father left when she was a toddler, that he'd never been part of her life. Now he was back? Stunned, I managed, "You told me your dad was gone, that you hadn't seen him in decades." She nodded, tears glistening. "I lied. I found him a few months ago. He contacted me out of the blue, said he wanted to reconcile. I was so confused, I didn't want to burden you. Then I realized he's sick, he wants to see me before it's too late. We've been meeting in secret because I wasn't sure how you'd react. I didn't want drama. And I also worried about my mom's feelings. She hates him. They had a nasty divorce. I'm sorry I didn't tell you." My brain raced. The lines from the cafe conversation, "He deserves to know, after the wedding. I can't overshadow Caitlin's day." The man threatening to speak up. Could that be about me, or about Tessa's mother, or the rest of her family? I asked, why was he talking about overshadowing the wedding? Are you inviting him?" She exhaled shakily. "That's the problem. He wants to come see me in a normal setting. He found out about the wedding through some post of Caitlin's on social media. He insisted he could pass as my guest, so we could spend time without telling everyone the truth." I was uncertain. I told him it was risky, that I'd have to talk to you. He said if I didn't let him attend, he'd come forward anyway. He's desperate to reconnect. I'm stuck, Aiden. I was trying to handle it alone. I stared at her, anger and relief mingling in a dizzying swirl. So this wasn't a romantic affair after all. But it was still a huge betrayal. She'd hidden the fact that she was forging a bond with her estranged father, letting it overshadow our lives. Why keep it from me? I demanded, voice trembling. We're married, Tessa. I should be your partner in dealing with something like this. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was afraid you'd judge me, or think I was disloyal to my mom. You know how she's always said he was a toxic person. I wanted to be sure it was safe to let him back into my life. Then the wedding invitation stuff came up, and it all spiraled. I lied because I was scared. I sank down, rubbing my temples. This +1 rumor, did you actually tell Rob you'd bring him? She sighed. I vaguely mentioned wanting to bring someone who didn't know me well, but wanted to see an American wedding. I never said father or fiancé or anything. I guess Rob assumed it was a coworker. That's how the confusion started. I was still on the fence, but my dad was pushing for it. She wiped her tears. I never intended to exclude you or humiliate you. I handled it badly. A wave of relief washed over me that it wasn't an affair, but the betrayal still stung. She'd been sneaking around, skipping our couple obligations, lying about site visits, all to maintain secret lunches with a father she claimed had abandoned her. Tessa, I said after a moment, voice softer, you should have told me. We could have figured this out together. Now it's turned into a fiasco. You realize how suspicious it looked, right? She nodded, eyes filled with remorse. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The question remained, what now? The wedding was in less than 2 weeks. Her father wanted to attend, but that was obviously huge drama, especially if Tessa's mother was present. Not to mention Caitlin and Rob had no idea. I felt anger simmering at the father for pushing Tessa into this predicament. But also, a sliver of empathy for Tessa's longing to reconnect with the man who vanished from her life. What do you want to do? I asked finally. She sniffled. I want to talk to my mom first, see how she feels, but I doubt she'll be supportive. Then I guess I should talk to Caitlin. And, well, you. I don't want to bring him as a +1 if it's going to cause chaos. But I also can't pretend he doesn't exist. He's terminally ill, Aiden. He says he might only have months. I feel a responsibility to let him be part of my life before it's too late. Despite the frustration, I stepped forward, rested a hand on her shoulder. I'm not trying to stop you from reconnecting with your father, I said softly. But we have to be honest about it. No more secrets. That means telling Caitlin the truth about who he is, telling your mom you've reconnected, and letting them decide how to handle the wedding situation. We can't blindside everyone. She nodded, tears spilling anew. You're right. I'll do it. I'll talk to them. Just, stand by me. I exhaled, tension easing slightly. Yes, but you have to promise no more lies. She promised, hugging me fiercely. In that moment, the sense of relief and leftover anger vied for dominance, but I clung to the hope that honesty might salvage us. Over the next few days, Tessa took steps to rectify the situation. She phoned her mother to reveal she'd been in contact with her estranged father, something that sparked a heated argument. Tessa later told me her mother was outraged, cursing that man for the pain he caused years ago. Tessa cried, torn between loyalty and curiosity about the father she barely knew. Meanwhile, I arranged a meeting with Caitlin and Rob to clarify the +1 confusion. We all gathered at Caitlin's place. Tessa, pale and anxious, explained the truth, that the co-worker was actually her father, newly back in her life, pushing for an invite. She apologized for any confusion or rumor that made it sound like she was bringing a secret partner. Rob sighed with relief that it wasn't an affair, hugging us both. Caitlin looked stunned, then concerned. Tessa, you sure you want him at my wedding? I mean, not to be selfish, but it's already a big day, and if your mom's there, drama could overshadow it. Tessa nodded, looking guilty. I'm so sorry. That's why I want your input. If you don't want him there, I understand. Caitlin and Rob exchanged glances. Then Caitlin said gently, it's your call. I won't bar him from coming if it means something to you. But be mindful, this is your mom's day to celebrate, too. I don't want a huge blow-up. Tessa swallowed, tears edging her eyes again. I know. Maybe it's best he doesn't come. I'll see him another time. I rubbed her back supportively, proud that she was owning the consequences. Caitlin offered a compromise. Maybe Tessa's father could attend the rehearsal dinner in a more casual environment, or greet Tessa briefly outside the wedding. But Tessa insisted it might not be wise. We left with a plan. Tessa would inform her father that he wasn't attending the wedding, but she'd schedule time separately. Everyone breathed easier. The day of the wedding arrived. Tessa and I, while not fully healed from the trust breach, had found some stability in open communication. She assured me her father had agreed to stay away. She'd visited him earlier that week, discussing his health, promising to keep in touch. We attended Caitlin's ceremony together, arms linked, genuinely happy for our friends. For a few hours, we lost ourselves in the joy of the moment, Caitlin's beaming face, Rob's emotional vows, the laughter of old friends. I even joked with Tessa that this was good practice if we ever wanted to renew our own vows. She blushed, eyes shiny with apology and love. At the reception, everything was going smoothly, until Tessa's mother arrived. Tessa's mother, Lydia, was wearing a chic navy dress, looking every bit the dignified expat. She greeted me politely, but when Tessa approached, the tension crackled. "I'm not going to discuss him here," Lydia hissed quietly, shooting me a look that suggested I knew all about him. Tessa just nodded, tears brimming. She seemed determined not to mar the reception with an argument. I took Tessa's hand, guided her away to the dance floor to cool off the tension. We swayed to the music, my hand on her waist, her head resting against my shoulder. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of closeness, a reconnect ion. She whispered, "Thank you for sticking with me." I pressed a kiss to her temple. "We'll get through this," I said, even as a pang of lingering hurt pulsed in my chest. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I glimpsed a tall figure by the door. My stomach dropped. Tessa's father, Eat, stood there, scanning the crowd. Tessa must have felt me tense. She lifted her head, followed my gaze. Her eyes widened in shock. "What is he doing here?" she breathed. He caught her eye, lifted a tentative wave. Panic flickered in Tessa's expression. She released me, moving toward him. I followed anxiously. We reached him near the edge of the reception hall, where he quickly said, "I'm sorry, Tessa. I know we agreed I wouldn't come, but I couldn't help it. I had to see you, see what your life is like." He glanced around, ignoring the startled glances from guests. "I won't cause trouble." Tessa's voice trembled with frustration. "This is Caitlin's wedding. You can't just show up uninvited. My mother is here, this could blow up." He held up his hands. "I won't stay. I just wanted to see you one more time. My health's deteriorating faster than expected. Please, just give me 5 minutes." My heart twisted. The man's desperation was palpable. Tessa looked torn, eyes brimming with tears. "Okay," she whispered. "But let's go outside. We can't do this here." He nodded, and they slipped out through a side door. I hesitated, uncertain if I should follow or give them space. Ultimately, I decided to wait inside, scanning the crowd in case Lydia spotted him. Sure enough, Tessa's mother was across the room, sipping champagne. I hovered near the door, ready to intercept her if she tried to approach. Several minutes passed. My nerves frayed. Then I noticed Lydia's gaze shift, as if searching for Tessa. She spotted me, approached, lips set in a thin line. "Where's my daughter?" she asked, suspicious. I stammered some excuse about needing fresh air. Her eyes narrowed, and I realized she suspected Tessa's father might be here. She started moving toward the side exit. I quickly stepped in her path. "It's fine," I said, holding my hands up in a placating gesture. "They just needed a moment. This is Caitlin's wedding, remember? Let's not cause a scene." Her face hardened. "So he is here." She tried to push past me. I gently but firmly blocked her. 5 minutes, I pleaded. "Give Tessa that. She's an adult, Lydia, and she can handle this." My heart pounded, half expecting her to lash out. But she paused, trembling with rage and old hurt, perhaps. Then, with a sharp exhale, she stepped back. "She always was too soft-hearted for her own good," she muttered, tears glistening. "If he hurts her again, I'll never forgive him." I nodded, relieved. "I understand." Another few minutes ticked by, and at last, Tessa slipped back inside, her father nowhere in sight. She looked shaken, tear tracks marking her cheeks. Lydia glared from across the room. Tessa avoided her gaze, found me instead. "He's leaving," she said in a hushed voice. "He just wanted to see me in a happy setting, I guess. Said it reminded him of what he missed all these years." My chest ached. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though tears brimmed. "I told him we can meet tomorrow, but not to do this again. He apologized 1,000 times." She sagged against me, exhausted. "I'm sorry if this ruined anything. I never meant for him to show up." "It's not your fault," I reassured, though I felt the stares of curious guests and the simmering tension from Lydia. "Let's just get through the evening. Caitlin's day shouldn't be overshadowed." Tessa nodded, wiping her face, summoning a shaky smile. We rejoined the reception. Caitlin shot us a worried look, but we nodded that it was under control. The rest of the night passed in a blur of toasts, dancing, and half-forced merriment. In the aftermath, Tessa's father's unexpected cameo forced the truth into the open with her mother. Lydia confronted Tessa the next day, a tearful, heated exchange that ended in Tessa calmly asserting her right to see her father, regardless of Lydia's bitterness. Over time, they reached a tenuous truce. Lydia would not stand in Tessa's way, but she wanted no part in seeing him herself. Tessa's father, meanwhile, kept in touch sporadically, but his failing health limited his visits. For me and Tessa, the entire ordeal tested our marriage in unexpected ways. In therapy-like discussions, we unpacked how her fear led her to lie, how my suspicious reaction worsened the tension. We realized that we needed better communication about our deepest anxieties, hers about family trauma, mine about betrayal. The wedding fiasco ultimately became a catalyst for raw honesty. Tessa admitted that hiding her father felt like a breach of trust, but she was terrified I'd judge him or side with her mother. I admitted my mind had jumped to an affair, revealing deeper insecurities about our growing distance. Gradually, we rebuilt. It wasn't easy. Trust once dented never fully returns to its pristine state. But Tessa showed genuine remorse, gave me space to vent my lingering frustration. I learned to be more compassionate about her complicated family history, acknowledging that her father's reappearance reopened old wounds. Through many emotional conversations, we found new empathy for each other's vulnerabilities. As for Caitlin and Rob, they forgave Tessa the confusion. The wedding photos turned out lovely, capturing fleeting glimpses of tension but mostly radiant joy. Caitlin teased me that at least we'd have a wedding story for the ages. I forced a laugh, still feeling pangs of guilt that our drama overshadowed a bit of their big day. Rob gave me a firm handshake, saying he was glad the misunderstanding was resolved. I realized he truly had just misunderstood Tessa's cryptic mention. 6 months later, Tessa's father passed away quietly in a hospice center. She was with him for his final days, forging a fragile bond in those last moments. I held her hand through her grief, hearing her speak softly about the father she never really knew, how she wished he'd come back sooner, how she mourned the relationship they could have had. She thanked me often for standing by her even when I thought she was betraying me. I could see the weight of regret in her eyes, that she'd tried to handle everything alone out of fear. Maybe if she'd told me from the start, she'd have had more time with him without all the secrecy. But life doesn't offer do-overs. We learned from the pain, carried it forward. In the end, the story of Tessa's +1 turned out to be about family, not infidelity. The heartbreak I felt, the jealousy, the betrayal, those feelings were real enough, fueled by her deception and my assumptions. But we overcame them through conversation, empathy, and a mutual desire not to lose each other. Looking back, I see how easily we can misread the signals when the truth is kept in darkness. She'd feared condemnation, I'd feared betrayal, and in that vacuum of communication, suspicion bloomed. Today, Tessa and I approach challenges differently. Whenever a new worry emerges, we try to address it before it festers. She no longer disappears for days without explanation, and I no longer rummage for proof of wrongdoing. We keep each other in the loop about important developments, particularly anything involving her mother or the memory of her father. That transparency is a fragile but necessary step toward healing. Sometimes, I remember how close we came to fracturing permanently that day in Rob's backyard, when he let slip that Tessa planned a mysterious +1. The shock that reverberated through me was unlike anything I'd experienced. But ironically, that slip of the tongue forced the truth into daylight. If not for Rob's comment, Tessa might have tried to handle her father's presence at the wedding quietly, leading to an even more catastrophic reveal. I've learned that love can endure even the sharpest doubts if both people fight for it. Tessa and I did fight. Our marriage bent, but it didn't break. The ghost of her father's reappearance still lingers in our house, photos of him in those final months, letters he wrote her. We talk openly about him, sometimes tearfully, sometimes with wry acceptance. She regrets the deception, regrets not trusting me enough to share her burden earlier. I regret letting suspicion paralyze me instead of calmly asking her to confide. But regrets are simply lessons we carry forward. When I hold Tessa now, I'm more aware than ever of the fragility in every relationship. People hide truths for complicated reasons, fear, shame, or misguided attempts at protection. The difference between a broken bond and a strengthened one often lies in the willingness to come clean, to face pain together, rather than letting it fester in secrecy. In that sense, Tessa's father gave us an unexpected gift, the chance to test our marriage's resilience and discover that, despite heartbreak, we still choose each other. It's been over a year since Caitlin's wedding. Rob's offhand mention of a +1 has become something we can almost laugh about, albeit shakily. The memory still stings, but we survived. Our circle of friends never fully learned the intricacies, though Caitlin knew enough to understand it involved Tessa's father. People assume it was some minor confusion with a coworker, letting the rumor fade. Tessa never needed to publicly announce that she reconnected with her estranged dad. She found closure in those final moments with him, and in the aftermath, we found a deeper closeness with each other. In my more introspective moments, I consider how different life might be if Tessa had indeed been having an affair. Would we have dissolved irreparably? Possibly. But there's a bittersweetness in the actual truth, that her father's reentry into her life was enough to cause so much turmoil. It taught me a lesson about suspicion. Sometimes the scenario we concoct in our minds is far more sinister than reality, but that doesn't make the hurt from deception any less real. Tessa sometimes asks if I still resent her. I won't lie, the memory of those anxious days, the hush in her eyes when I asked about her whereabouts, the confusion swirling around a mysterious +1, I can't erase them. But over time, resentment gave way to compassion. She was dealing with emotional upheaval, grappling with a father she never expected to see again, carrying the weight of loyalty to her mother, fearing my reaction. That doesn't justify her lying, but it helps me understand. We continue to work on our communication, even attending couples counseling a few times. The counselor once asked Tessa, "What's the biggest takeaway from that period of secrecy?" Her response stuck with me, that no matter how scary honesty feels, it's less damaging than being caught hiding something. The cost of lies is always higher than you think. I nodded in agreement. Now, we're forging new plans, maybe a big trip to Spain, where Tessa's grandparents live, bridging the gap in her family's story. She wants me by her side when she visits old relatives, possibly discovering more about her father's younger days. It's a journey we approach with caution, but also hope. The wedding fiasco, ironically, was a turning point that taught us how to be raw and real with each other, to let love guide us through the mess of complicated family ties. Sometimes, in the quiet hours, I reflect on how I nearly lost my marriage to an assumption of infidelity. The heartbreak was real, even though the premise turned out differently. In a sense, Tessa's father was indeed her +1, not in the romantic sense, but as an unexpected companion in her life's next chapter. The betrayal I felt was about her secrecy, her refusal to let me in on a profound personal crisis. But we've addressed that rift. We remain together, forging ahead, mindful that secrets can sabotage even the strongest bonds. The day Caitlin's wedding photos arrived, Tessa and I sat together on the couch, scrolling through shots of the ceremony, the reception, the dancing. We looked happy in the pictures, though I remembered the tension roiling beneath the surface. One photo showed Tessa and me on the dance floor, her arms around my shoulders, my forehead lightly pressed to hers. We both wore subdued smiles. I recalled how my heart hammered at the time, half fearful, half relieved. Tessa took my hand in hers, squeezed softly. "We made it," she whispered. In that moment, I felt gratitude wash over me. Yes, it was messy. Yes, it still stung to think how easily she lied about her father. But we stood at the brink of losing everything, and we stepped back, choosing each other. The photograph captured a quiet victory, that even in uncertainty, we clung to love. And so, the story ends not with a clean happily ever after, but with a real, complicated, hopeful vow to keep going. She no longer has to hide lunches or awkward father-daughter meetings. I no longer go to bed tortured by nightmares of an unknown lover. The wedding came and went, forging a memory that encompassed not just Caitlin and Rob's vows, but also Tessa's painful confrontation with her past. We learned that marriage is more than just a shared home or a ring on the finger. It's forging trust day by day, especially when fear tries to tear it apart. If I close my eyes, I can still see that backyard with the string of paper lanterns, the sunlight filtering through, Rob's face as he let slip that question about Tessa's +1. It was the catalyst for the chain of events that nearly broke me. But at the same time, it was the impetus for truth. Funny how fate works. One stray comment, and we unravel, only to discover a new chance at honesty. And I guess that's the moral of the story. Sometimes what looks like a betrayal is actually a cry for help, a hidden burden that yearns for daylight. If you can muster the courage to confront it, if love remains stronger than pride, you just might find a way forward. Yes, I still ache sometimes, thinking how she shut me out. But each time, she proves with small actions that she's learned her lesson. She calls me after a stressful day instead of bottling it up, invites me to meet her mother to discuss old family woes, shows me her text threads with extended relatives so I'm never in the dark again. And every day, I remind her that I'm not her enemy, that I want to share her burdens, not condemn her. Slowly, we're healing. In the end, Tessa's best friend's fiance mentioned a +1 at a wedding, and it wasn't me. But it also wasn't some clandestine lover. It was a man named Elijah, the father Tessa thought she'd lost. A man who forced us all to confront painful truths, rattling a wedding day that was supposed to be about celebration. Life rarely follows a neat script. We adapt, we stumble, we hurt each other unintentionally, then scramble to pick up the pieces. Tessa and I are still picking up ours, piece by piece, forging them into a mosaic that might be more beautiful for the cracks. That's enough for me. We're not perfect, but we're real. We hold each other's hands now, stepping into the uncertain future with eyes open wide. And if suspicion ever creeps up again, we vow to meet it head-on, mindful that in a marriage, secrets weigh heavier than any vow. It's not an easy road, but it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.